Good morning, everybody. This is Dr. Marianne Pinkston, and this is The Better Life with Dr. Pinkston. Today, I have a fantastic guest who has been on with us previously, my mentor and friend, Jim LaValle, who is Chief Science Officer at Lifetime. I mean, you've got a laundry list of things that you do. If I went through it all, we'd be here for, the rest of the hour. Busy guy, but always doing something good and wonderful. Just got back from A4M in Las Vegas, the American Academy of Anti-Aging. I know, talk about a whirlwind.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, so wonderful work up there. But I know we've got a topic today that I am always interested in. I'm always watching on myself, and I know tied to longevity, and I'm going to let you explain all of it, heart rate variability. And I think people are becoming more aware and all. We want to increase that awareness today. Welcome on, Jim. It's always nice to have you. Nice to have you back.
Oh, great to be here. Yeah, heading into the holiday rush. Yep. So this is a good way to go.
Exactly. Well, this can affect your heart rate variability too, with all the stress and everything. So they're right.
Exactly.
Well, I guess first of all, if you want to say a few words about kind of what you do and who you are, but let's head into heart rate variability as well.
Yeah. So, as you said, Chief Science Officer at Lifetime, 2.5 million folks go into close to 200 iconic fitness facilities that are really more like, I'd say, country clubs for health enthusiasts. So really excited about what we're doing there, putting in longevity and performance health centers into the Lifetime facilities. So that's great. And then spend a lot of time, obviously, acting as the co-chair at the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine and chair of the International Peptide Society. And then lastly, it's Metabolic Code Enterprises, which is a cloud-based informatics system that helps people understand where they're metabolically broke, and then more importantly, what the first steps are they should do in order to correct the current metabolic imbalances. So, staying a little busy these days. But it's a lot of fun. I just get excited every morning on the things that we can discover and the things that we can apply to help people live healthier lives. So it's great.
Absolutely. And for about 18, probably almost 20 years, you have been great to guide me on my health journey. You are a huge reason why I am where I am, 180 pounds down and healthier than I used to be. And I'm thanking God for it. And thank you for that. Well, so heart rate variability, what is it?
Yeah, so, everybody's wearing wearable watches now, and they've got this little thing called HRV. And heart rate variability is about, when your heart beats, there's a little variation between beat to beat. There's supposed to be a variation between beat to beat. And, even though your heart's beating a certain amount per second, there's variations between each beat. The better those variations, the more flexible your heart is to take on a demand. So, if you remember, I remember taking I played piano for 8 years growing up as a kid, and I had a metronome, right? Metronome where it clicked and it was very consistent, right? It never changed. That's not what you want your heart rate to do. You don't want your heart to get stuck in exact same tone. So heart rate variability measures that ability to see how your nervous system is actually functioning and signaling your heart to work. So it literally is the connection between your brain, something called your vagus nerve and autonomic nervous system, and your heart, and then the neurovascular network, all the arteries that respond to what goes on with your heart. So really important, because we know that as you reduce your heart rate variability, as your heart gets more and more stuck like that metronome, that's not a good sign for longevity. That usually indicates shorter lifespan. So you can actually work on your heart rate variability. But it's something that a lot of people are just now getting, kind of attuned to, is the value of it.
Absolutely. So in testing, I know you said we've got the wearables now, we've got the watches, and we've got other devices, rings and, chest bands and all of these things. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But when we are looking at heart rate variability and longevity, why is it important to, like you said, the neurovascular bundles and all, but how does it translate into longevity?
Oh, that's a great question. So you got two sides to your nervous system, basically, the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. And the sympathetic nervous system is your body's fight or flight response. And it turns out when you're sympathetic dominant, you also reduce your heart rate variability. And so you got a white tiger chasing you all the time. Well, there's some problems with that because your blood vessels get stiffer, and you make more pro-inflammatory compounds from your immune system. And we hear the term inflammaging. Inflammaging or inflammatory aging is a byproduct of too many of those inflammatory cytokines being released into your system. So when you're sympathetic dominant, you speed up your heart rate, your blood pressure goes up, your immune system gets a little bit out of kilter. And now you kind of have a persistent, low-grade inflammatory response, which actually, it's interesting. That persistent low-grade inflammatory response, I've read papers where they said, people with diabetes or people with insulin resistance have the equivalent of a low-grade infection in their body because of that consistent inflammatory response. Now, the parasympathetic nervous system, that is called it's also known as the vagal brake. It allows for your body to calm down and lower your blood pressure. Now, the problem with that is that the sympathetic nervous system is supposed to be something that is a burst. I see a perceived, we're primitive nervous system in a modern world, right? So I see a perceived threat, and my sympathetic nervous system is there to protect and defend.
Right.
Well, emails from people, text messages that you didn't like, getting stuck in traffic, overcommitment during the day, all those things. Maybe you didn't get to watch your favorite episode that just released on Netflix. I don't know. It's something. But something now is in our nervous system that creates kind of that low-grade fight or flight response. And sometimes it's very real. You could be going through family issues. It could be, relationship issues, any number of things could be very legitimate, right? But the problem is when it's sustained. And that's where you can lean into your lifestyle in order to neutralize the effect of, sympathetic dominant or fight or flight living, which unfortunately I think a lot of people are suffering from, and justifiably so, I think, in our current situation with a lot of unrest everywhere, and a lot of things happening.
Yeah, and lots of social media scrolling and attention span deficits and things like that added on to it. And so we live in a very stress heavy society. So so we're affecting the heart at this point. You mentioned the vagus nerve, parasympathetic, sympathetic, all that hooked together. So how does it affect the brain as well?
Well, I mean, anytime that you're triggering inflammatory signaling, right, that's going to create neuroinflammation. But even at the most basic level, when your brain perceives stress, it's perceiving that, I didn't like that scroll. I can't believe what that person said, right? Whatever that is, you release more cortisol, which is a stress hormone. Your brain says release more cortisol to your adrenal glands. But then it also, you end up making more adrenaline and more adrenaline. Now, what can that end up being? That can be anxiousness, nervousness, trouble sleeping. It's associated, low HRV is even associated with depression, right? So literally the brain is being remolded or reshaped to kind of think it's in that continual pattern. And that's where we cross the bridge from something called allostasis which is the ability of your body to respond and then go back to normal. It's like the circuit breaker box didn't blow, right? You know, you had a little bit of an energy surge, but everything's okay at the house. Now, when you cross that bridge to allostatic load, meaning that now you've got enough perceived stress coming into you that your circuit breaker box in your brain, that's what your brain is. It's the master and commander of everything in your body. It's regulating hormones and the nervous system, the immune system, you name it. The brain now changes the way it would have normally responded. So it either creates a lack of response, so it doesn't respond appropriately at all, or it begins to over-respond and change the types of signals, whether it's to making hormones, because we know when you're under chronic stress, you make less sex hormones because you inhibit something called gonadotropin-releasing hormone. And it also reduces the amount of growth hormone-releasing hormone, which means you're going to get more catabolic, you're not going to be able to maintain lean mass, and you lose your circadian rhythm. So as the brain gets out of kilter, why that's so important and why heart rate variability is so important is our body actually works in basically ebbs and flows during the course of the day. In the morning, you release a lot of cortisol. You also release your sex hormones. And then it kind of falls into the afternoon. And then you're supposed to release another bolster of, say, sex hormones in men, testosterone at 2 p.m. But the issue becomes those pulses start to get skewed. And that is important because there's this area of your brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. It's called the master slave clock. It's dictating everything from how much insulin should I release in order to dictate, how I respond to food. So there's all of these issues that start to really compound themselves as you lose kind of the flexibility of your heart, you lose heart rate variability, and you get stuck in sympathetic tone.
Absolutely. And can do so for a very long time. So with heart rate variability and heart health and that low level of inflammation, then I know you mentioned the inflammation, and it's the inflammation of the arteries and, losing the flexibility of the heart. What are other things that begin to be affected? So you mentioned or touched on weight and as a part of this. And something that's very interesting to me too, very important, is sleep. And how it affects, and how sleep backs up and affects all of it as well. Sleep
quality is enormous. And honestly, if you have poor sleep quality, by default, you're under excess sympathetic stress.
Absolutely.
I mean, unless you have sleep apnea, which in and of itself causes changes in your synchronicity of your heart and brain because you're losing oxygen. With sleep apnea, you're losing oxygen. And now all of a sudden your brain goes, no oxygen, speed up the heart rate. So you'll get these big pulses of energy, basically, when you have apnea, as you're anoxic, you don't have enough oxygen, and your nervous system's being reprogrammed to fire off at very high heart rates.
Right.
So sleep quality is incredibly important. Now, you also have to realize that as we age, our heart rate variability will go down. And so that's an incredibly important piece of the puzzle.
Yes.
But the other piece is that, when you should be taking your heart rate variability, like a lot of people are looking at it all during the course of the day.
Oh, gosh. Yes.
Really best to get an understanding of where it's at is to take it in the morning.
Okay.
Like either getting out of bed or while you're in bed, look at your Oura ring. And once again, all of these devices have different, I think, accuracies related to heart rate variability. I think the chest straps are still by far the most accurate. But, I'm sure they'll be dialing all those things in with their equations over time. It certainly is what's going on right now.
Yeah.
But, that whole piece of sleep quality, I mean, it just cannot be, it can't be overemphasized. I mean, it is core. Probably the number one thing you can do to maintain a healthy life is get a good night's sleep.
Absolutely.
And then, that whole chronic fight or flight piece, look, people can actively look. You might not be able to change the circumstances in your life.
Right.
You might be working 2 jobs in order to make ends meet, single parent, there's all kinds of things that happen, but you can actually train your nervous system to be resilient to the amount of stress that you're under. And I think that's one of the things that people just kind of give up on. They're just like, well, this is just life. Yeah. And it may be, but you can retrain your body. And I think that's really important. Caffeine intake's a big issue nowadays. I mean, my gosh, think if you go in to get gas and you walk into the 7-Eleven or the store, I mean, you got like 4 refrigerators full of caffeinated drinks now. I mean, it's unbelievable that the amount of caffeine that people can ingest. And obviously now people are doing nicotine and caffeine, and where I think that a little bit of nicotine is probably really good for your brain. A lot of people are way overdoing that in conjunction with way overdoing caffeine. And all that's a sign of is that you've lost your ability to generate energy in your body. And that's a big sign that probably your heart rate variability is in trouble too.
Absolutely. Can we spend a minute on that? Because that's a great point, Jim, that we are in our intake of caffeine and the amount of people that people do, they get tolerant, first of all. So remember, when you first start it, you get a little tolerant, then you need more, then you get more tolerant, then you need more. And that's why some people buy 4 Red Bulls a day or more. But I want to talk about how we get into that rabbit hole. So lack of sleep and fatigue and, with all the excess stressors and whatnot lead us to feel terrible in the morning, wake up, need that punch, and then feel terrible throughout the day. How does that begin, and how can somebody, more than how can they cycle out of it? What does it actually do? So what does it actually do to the circadian rhythm?
Yeah, well, the biggest thing is caffeine stimulates cortisol release. So, cortisol is supposed to be released very high in the morning. It's called your cortisol awakening response. We're daytime beings. We're not marsupials. We're not supposed to have lots of energy at night. We're supposed to be dialing down at night. Our blood pressure is supposed to go down at night. But the problem is with the demands in life, and as your body is producing more and more cortisol, at one point you start to not produce quite as much. Your body's actually down regulating it. Your brain, your body's really smart. I mean, it's changing all these levers, what I call countermeasures, to keep you whole. So as it's down regulating that cortisol response in order to save your brain, actually, you feel tired and you have to focus, and you got to drive to work, and it's a 45-minute drive, and you're going to have to either have a massive quad latte chino with extra sugar, or you're going to drink a double monster or something to keep you alert. Well, the problem with that is that you get that burst and then you get that classic midday crash. And I mean, after all the years of doing the work that I've been doing with patients, one of the number one things they complain of, I get that midday crash between 2 and 3. Or if I'm talking to a business person, I don't like to make decisions after 2:30 because my brain's kind of foggy. Right. And so you lose the natural circadian rhythm of how your body should be producing the stress hormone that makes you effective to work through the day. Now, what starts to happen is if you sustain that stress and you flatten that cortisol curve where you're making, too much cortisol either by stimulating it through, caffeine, or just because of the circumstances you're in, it starts to confuse your brain. And so you're going into night and you're supposed to be almost down to nothing on cortisol, which tells your brain time to repair, because you release melatonin, which helps your body go to sleep. The problem is when you don't get a good night's sleep, there's something called the glymphatic system, the glial lymphatic system. And basically what it is, it's how your brain flushes out the byproducts of its metabolism during the course of the day. And when you don't clean house in your brain at the end of the day, those waste products hang around, and now your immune system goes, well, you don't belong there. And now your immune system turns on and says, hey, we need to clean up. Problem is that becomes a sustained inflammatory response. And now all of a sudden people are saying, oh my gosh, my short-term memory isn't what it should be. How come I'm not remembering where my keys are anymore? So this is a process that's, it's slowly slipping down that funnel, taking you away from the vitality that people deserve, right? And so that's kind of how it happens. And then you need to bolster. And then eventually when you start taking in so much caffeine, it starts having a negative effect. You actually start feeling tired from it.
Right.
So that happens as well. That's kind of at the tail end of it when you really have done too much caffeine.
Really
that's when you know, okay, I think I better come clean and avoid the caffeine and figure out how to rebuild my circadian rhythm.
Right. And so we'll talk about how to measure all of this, but backing up now to heart rate variability and how all of this affects what is, and we'll talk about treatment too. I want people to know we're going to hit the high points there and how to fix it all with heart rate variability. Then how do you measure it? You've mentioned the chest strap is the best way. Not everybody can access that, but how and when are the best times to measure it?
Yeah, best time of day is first thing in the morning. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of people now, like whether you wear one of these guys or wear one of these guys or, where's my ultra human ring? I know it's somewhere around here. I got three or four things. I got 3 or 4 things measuring all the time just because I'm trying to make sense of all of it. But whatever you have, you want to be consistent about measuring it. Sure. I think like Aura, Whoop, Hume Health, they've got some nice, non-chest strap technologies. I mean, honestly, the chest straps are cheaper than a lot of these other options.
Sure.
They're actually the cheapest thing you can get to measure your heart rate variability. It's a little convenient because you got to put it on in the morning and then you got to measure it, but it's actually the most accurate way. And if you're really concerned about your heart health, it's probably the best way to do it. I like the Morpheus strap. I think it's, fantastic. So I'm a big fan of that. So you measure it ideally first thing in the morning. From there, well, what can you do about it? Well, there's some simple things that you can do. You could learn how to box breathe. And box breathing is very easy. It doesn't cost anything to box breathe. Yeah. And it's a very simple inhale 4 seconds, hold 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds. And when you're exhaling, you're thinking about the stress that you're releasing that you've taken on. And I usually recommend people do it at noon. Like, hey, take your morning of work before you eat lunch, just take 3 minutes to breathe. And you want to be thankful. You want to be grateful for something at the end of that 3 minutes.
Absolutely.
And then again, at the end of the workday, you've just put in another 5 hard hours or 6 hard hours before you go in to have dinner. Or if you got 3 kids at home and when you walk in the door, it's pandemonium, right?
Right.
Maybe do it in your car before you walk in the house.
Yeah. Good.
And that way, maybe it'll control that, little tendency to bite at your kids, right? Because I think that, we get guilty of those things. And then again, to do it again at the end of your day when you're laying down, just 3 minutes. It's amazing. I've taught this for 20 years now. Yeah. And it's amazing how many people come back to me and say, you know what? I was in traffic and I felt myself getting agitated. And I just did that box breathing for a minute and it really calmed me down. They start using it as a tool. And so I think that's a really important tool. I think the other one is you do have to exercise. And I know it's not a popular term now. We like using terms like movement. So my point is do movement and make it exercise.
Exactly.
Right. And the
intentional movement.
Make movement with intention.
Yes.
And so the point to it is where's the minimum that you can do? Start by if you have to and you haven't been doing any exercise and your heart rate variability is really poor. And remember, the older you get, the more it drops. Men also tend to have higher HRV than women. So there's that as well. But the point being is start with zone 2 walking. What's zone 2 walking? Well, it's if you want to just think of a simple way to measure zone 2, it would be you can walk at a pace that you could say a few sentences, but you can't carry a conversation.
Gotcha.
You don't want to be able to lazily walk and where you're talking on the phone, talking with the buddy that you're walking with, you want to be walking at a pace. Then if you advance to that, from there, you could do periodic zone 2 to zone 3 and 4. Now, what's that mean? You're making your heart work a little harder. So you could start with maybe 2 minutes of walking. And then if you're on a treadmill, for example, you could raise the elevation and make it harder and raise your heart rate into that next level or two for, say, 1 minute, 2 minutes walk, 1 minute there. And what's that doing? That's changing the way your heart is beating, right? Because it's beating harder. And now you're telling it to slow down. Then you're beating harder, telling it to slow down. So you're conditioning that. And then I'm always a fan, not so much for, weight training for the sake of pure heart rate variability, but make sure you're getting some resistance training to go with that, because, we need our bones and we need our muscle. And you and I are both big fans of resistant training. But I think you have to combine the two whenever possible so that you can really give your heart its best shot. Interestingly, if you are like a marathon runner and it's people that run at a very high heart rate all the time, that actually can work against you.
Thank you.
And you actually lower your production of a thyroid hormone called free T3. Your free T3 levels go down. Why does that happen? Because your brain is saying, hey, your heart rate's too high for too long a time. We're going to lower your thyroid hormone, because thyroid hormone is what stimulates the rhythmicity of the heart. But the problem is there's a side effect to that, meaning that over a period of time, you get enlargement of your heart. And that's why with a lot of distance runners, they measure things like troponin and galectin to find out, well, is there any fibrosis going on because you've overdone it. So I really encourage people, exercise, incredibly important, but, be realistic about what you're able to do. But at the same time, if you've accomplished a certain level, don't be afraid to challenge yourself a little bit.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that is, I think the marathon running and that type of exercise is inflammatory, right? It causes low graded inflammation. I've seen studies where, marathoners may be at increased risk of cancer, let alone, the heart disease and whatnot due to that chronic level. The other thing, resistance training. So I think to back up again, I think you're talking about HIIT, high intensity interval training, kind of in the different zones. And so is that applicable as well? I know that's very popular with people right now.
Yeah, HIIT training can be really good. And actually they found that interval training actually lengthens your telomeres, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, that's another long
telomeres protect your DNA and, really help you to live longer. So that's variable training can be really good. And I think the other one that you mentioned, people don't plan for a good night's sleep. They race until 10 p.m. and all of a sudden jump in bed and think they're going to go to sleep.
And expect to go to sleep.
Yeah, it's like you've got to create an off ramp. I know for myself, I have a pretty hard line of I don't do really anything work related unless it's something unbelievably important that I have deadline I absolutely have to hit.
Sure.
I turn off everything at 7 p.m. most of the time 6 p.m. But 7 p.m. it's like, all right, it's time for me to let my brain cool down, relax, and kind of enjoy that soft landing into bed. Because I think a lot of folks don't plan for that, and I think it's super important. And whether you need lavender in your bath or a lavender diffuser, turn off, make sure you got the TV off in your bedroom.
No phone,
get the blue screen out of it. And I think, you've got it. You really have to be, I don't think we realize how much stimulus our brain takes on in a day.
Right.
And it's an active effort to quiet your mind to go into the evening and be able to get a restful sleep. You're not plowing fields 14 hours anymore like the pioneers to wear yourself slap out. So by the time you get to bed, you collapse and you're gone, right? I mean, most of us are pushing more intellectually. Our mind is actually really stimulated. We may have not done a lot of physical work. That's why I think the working out piece is great. Even if you, during your work day, if you're able to get up, go walk for 10 minutes. clear your
Absolutely.
head, walk for 10 minutes, get back into your seat and get to work. But being able to do things, some people can walk on a treadmill. I never was able to, walk and chew gum at the same time. So like the walking treadmill thing for me doesn't work. I mean, I'm afraid I'm going to fall flat on my face in the middle of a meeting. So that doesn't work for me. But I do get up and, jump out the door and try to walk a little bit, get some fresh air and try to recalibrate. And I think, those are the things related to heart rate variability. You've got to develop those sleep hygiene habits. And I really believe that happens by managing things all day long. Right. That regular exercise, super important. And I'll tell you the other one that a lot of people don't understand, hydration actually plays a role in heart rate variability.
Yes. Good point.
Good point. And, people need to hydrate. And hydration isn't drinking a bunch of caffeinated drinks. Hydration is drinking water.
It's not coffee. Right. Water.
Yeah, exactly.
What are the reference ranges for heart rate variability? So if it's first thing in the morning, what numbers are you looking for?
Well, it depends on your age, of course, but you really don't want to have heart rate variabilities in the 20s, right? I mean, even though that's acceptable for people as they get into their 50s and their 60s, if you're young and you're a male and you're training, heart rate variability in the 80s and 90s is really good. If you're down in the 40s and 50s and you're young, not so good. If you're a male or female in your 50s and your HRV is in the 40s, 50s, even 60s, I have some people I know for myself. I really hit it hard on trying to get my HRV, and I was getting my HRV with a strap in the 80s at last year, and I've done less this year, but still have a decent HRV. But that's atypical for somebody in their mid 60s. Yeah. So, what you don't want are HRVs that are really low, like in the 20s and 30s, especially if you're under the age of 50. Yep. Let's kind of make it easy, right? Yeah, kind of be in that above the 50s solidly between those ages of, 18 and 50. And then when you're 50, if you can be in from 35 to 50, you're in pretty good shape. You're at reduced risk. Yes. So those are kind of some general guideline ranges for people that they can think about.
Very good. Very good. Yeah. And so, and if you're doing it first thing in the morning, then just for folks to kind of, I know these are common questions that come up. How long they put the chest strap on? How long do they measure? And is it, the first step out of bed, like go to the bathroom and wait type of thing? Is it when you first step out or how do you manage that?
Ideally, what you do is you do it before you get out of bed. But if you get up to the side of your bed and measure it, that's really good. Obviously, if you got to get up, go to the bathroom, and then, sit down, take a couple deep breaths, put your chest strap on, do it. Typically, that measurement takes about 2 minutes. Okay. So it depends on what device you're using. If you're using a chest strap, it's 2 minutes. Yep. You're getting that calculation a little more periodically throughout the day when you're using like an Oura ring or you're using one of these guys. So it's a little bit different in that instance, but if you're using a chest strap, it's a 2-minute event. Very easy.
What about the people who overcheck? They check it every day and get hyper focused on it. What is your advice for them?
Well, that's the danger of like all this stuff. Right? Yeah. You can't let it dictate what I always tell them, don't let it dictate your joy. Like the one thing you don't want to take away is the zest for living. Yeah. All this is information to help you to try to improve. Yes. But you get people that hyper focus on it. And then all of a sudden the anxiety of it is now leading to the heart rate variability dipping. And and I have a lot of people that end up stop wearing it. Because, I'll give you a perfect example. I'm not a 8 to 9 hour sleeper. I sleep, if I get 7 restful hours, I feel amazing. Right. But because of the way, they have these devices kind of cued into their apps, I'm never going to hit 100% on my sleep. My sleep efficiency, like how long I sleep, now that measures fantastic. I'm always in the upper 90s, which means I go out and I'm done. I'm out. But the problem is that, so then what do? You start getting frustrated because you're only at 86% of your sleep goal. Oh my God, what am I going to do?
Right.
And I think it's really important for people to understand that all these things are tools for us to really cue into where could I improve? Like if you really wanted to be honest with yourself, what are the 3 things in your life that you could improve on? Like, for example, could I drink more water?
Right.
Could I walk more? Could I go to bed earlier or try to reduce my stress? It should be just helping us to guide lifestyle habits that allow us to be able to feel better about ourselves, to be healthier, and actually not be stuck in sympathetic tone where we get agitated easier. Right. And, it's hard. I mean, based on your ethnicity and how you grew up. I mean, I grew up Italian and a very Italian, take the hill right away,
Absolutely.
And, I had to work to unlearn that because a lot of these things sometimes we learn from a very early age because of our family dynamics.
Absolutely.
And so all of that matters. And once again, use these tools as a way for you to fortify your health and not to get anxious about your health.
Absolutely. Thank you. It's like weighing every day and seeing those changes. You're going to stress yourself out and be discouraged and then end up quitting what you're doing. And then what about then supplement wise? I know what I love about you is your focus on the tangible things that don't cost money, that are natural, completely natural to us. So the box breathing, the managing stress, the exercise, all those things, and sleep. So some people though are focused on supplements. They may not eat well, may not have time for good things like that to take care of themselves. But I've been there. I've learned how not to do that anymore. But what are some supplements that might help with regulating sleep and ultimately heart rate variability?
Well, I'll tell you, interesting. Well, theanine's an obvious one. Theanine helps to dampen your stress response, keep your glutamate down in your brain. That's awesome. Relora is another one that will lower your cortisol. But interestingly, we've been playing with a supplement called Lankind. Lankind is a 98% salidroside extract from rhodiola, and rhodiola is an adaptogen.
Okay. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And it's called Enduro 2, and you just chew up Enduro 2, and it helps with increasing your oxygen. Well, but the big thing is that it's an adaptogen that's super concentrated.
Gotcha.
So we've been having people take it at night, and it turns out their heart rate variability they're sleeping deeper, and their heart rate variability. I had one person report a 20-point increase in their HRV.
Okay, that's significant.
Pretty amazing.
That's significant.
So Enduro 2, and I got a personal story.
Yeah,
Laura, of course, she's been on your show. My brilliant wife. Yes.
Indeed.
But she can have trouble sleeping, like a lot of postmenopausal women. Mm-hmm. But she noticed that when she started doing this about a week ago, she's sleeping through the night, she's waking up rested. Wow. And so that spurred me to start doing it. And I thought, and I don't really necessarily have much trouble sleeping. I mean, once I'm down, I'm down. I don't get up. Yeah. But I even have noticed it's a few days I've done it. It's like, you know what? I think I even feel better.
Oh, that's great.
So it's really interesting that an adaptogen, highly concentrated, it improves tissue oxygen, so blood perfusion. But it helps with regulation of the what's called the peripheral beta adrenergic nervous system. So the peripheral stress response nervous system. It helps to turn that down. And that's kind of my exciting new go-to.
Very good.
Magnesium's an obvious one, too. Like, that's cheap. You can get magnesium cheap. Magnesium helps people because it helps with parasympathetic nervous system. And you get magnesium really cheap. And that's a good one. Preferably the bisglycinate is probably ideal. Threonate's another one that people are using at bedtime, but those are the key supplements that are, can be pretty quick and easy to access.
Oh, absolutely. And so as far as the Enduro 2, is that a metabolic elite product
that's a metabolic elite product? Yes,
very good. I'm glad to hear that. And you also have the Quicom which is what, or Tranquilato.
Yeah.
I know it comes.
Quicom. Yeah, both of them. They're
Quicom. Sorry.
Formula.
Yeah. No, that is one of my absolute favorites. I've used it for years. And, I get into a situation where, it's been a bad day, I'm really stressed. You can take a couple of those, safe as kittens. And it is just a decompressor. Really, really lovely product. So, so Metabolic Elite, and these are things that, are under your guidance and you guys make. And so where can people find information on you? And then I have one more question, but where can people find more information on you, Metabolic Elite, Metabolic Code, and
sure.
Where you live and breathe?
Me is like Instagram, the real Jim LaValle is easy. There's JimLaValle.com, which honestly is getting redone right now. So that one's okay site. Fun. But the real Jim LaValle on Instagram is good. Metabolicelite.co. My son Christian runs that. I've designed products for lots of companies, and I've designed products for him, and so I've been very happy about that. Yes. And then Metabolic Code is just metabolicCode.com. And people can find out an awful lot about what I'm up to.
Absolutely.
And then obviously I always thinking about look at Lifetime. I got lots of posts coming out from Lifetime on all the education I'm doing with them now as their chief science officer. So it's been pretty exciting.
Absolutely. I love Lifetime. I don't have one near me now, but I used to go and for years and loved Lifetime. I think they do a lot of wonderful things. And as far as the last question I had for you is about deep sleep. So how much does that, because people also with their Oura rings and other gadgets, take a look at their REM sleep, deep sleep, all their cycles. But I don't think people really understand the difference between, I know this is probably a whole other show, but if we focus kind of on REM and deep sleep, the important stuff, then how does that affect your heart rate variability as well?
Well, it's incredibly important because your body goes through stages during the night, right? You cycle when you're asleep, and you need a certain amount of REM sleep, because it turns out that's pretty important for brain restoration for your neurochemicals for the next day. So REM is important to get. Right. And then deep sleep is really where you shut down all that sympathetic stress that your nervous system, it's almost like turning all the lights off for the evening. Right.
And rest.
You're shutting down your house. You're truly in that rest state. And so I always tell people, look, it's, you really want to get over an hour and a half of both of those. That would be your kind of general guideline. I have a lot of people that report 40 minutes of each, and that's like, hey, you're not getting deep sleep. And so, you really want to kind of get over that hour mark on both of them solidly. I love it when people get into 2 hours of deep sleep. That's great. Gosh. I'm blessed. I looked at it. I'm one of those people that I go into deep sleep. My REM is good. I just, I always said I don't take on stress. And I tell this to my staff all the time. I give stress. I'm giving. And I don't think they're real fond of that, though. I don't know if they're real fond of that. It's
I think the two greatest words in the world are moderation and delegation. That's and no. Maybe I add a third one on there, and no.
And I have to learn that.
You don't know that. You do not know.
I do not know that word.
But as long as you can delegate it, then I think you can stay safe from that. No, you're Superman.
That's right.
It's amazing what you do, Jim, and we're all appreciative of it. So very good. Well, this has been a great amount of information. Thank you so much, because I want people to understand where they're going with this. This is just a start. It's just to dip your toe in the sea there of information. But, to sum it all up, sleep and stress, management, hydration, lower your caffeine intake, exercise, please, make it fun, and all of those things. Are just really great information. Thank you for all of this. Any other thoughts? Did we leave anything out that's important? You feel is important?
I would just say, because we're heading into the new year, if you've had another year of not feeling your best, pick out one thing that you could be doing to change the way you feel. And most people know what they're doing. Just pick one and start to make a change for yourself. I know for a fact, everybody I've worked on over the last 40 years, when they start to feel better, everything starts to get better in their life.
Absolutely.
And so, to me, just give it a shot, try to change one thing.
Just one. I agree. And then after you do that and feel better, then it all comes with it, as you say. So it does. It all comes with it.
That's right.
That's awesome. All right. So everybody, you can find all of his information and links to Instagram, websites and all on drpbetterlife.com. And at some of our previous shows, we've talked before. And also, as he mentioned, his beautiful wife, Laura LaValle, she's on as well. And so drpbetterlife.com. I appreciate you, as always, Jim, being on. Thank you for your information and your guidance on how to get healthy. And I hope
thank you.
You're welcome. Absolutely. Everybody, I hope you have a fantastic week and new year, and just take care of each other out there. And thank you. We'll see you soon.